Hello, my dear students of class 12 science. Welcome to biology class. Today we'll begin with the new chapter, biodiversity and its conservation. Clear? So first of all, what do you mean by biodiversity? Bio means life, and diversity means the diverse form of flora and fauna that we used to find in our ecosystem. So biodiversity or biological diversity, it refers to the variety and the variability among the living organisms and the ecological complexes in a given area. Okay, that means the variety of species that we used to find in a given ecological area or in a given ecosystem is known as biodiversity, because we have got huge diversity in terms of flora and the fauna, and that diversity of living organisms, that diversity of species of flora and fauna, that means of plants and animals in a given geographical area or in a given ecosystem, is known as biodiversity. Alright, so it represents the sum total of various types of microbes, plants and animals present in an ecosystem in a given area. So we are not only considering the different species of plants, the different species of animals, but we are also considering the different types of microbes present in an ecosystem in a given area. Okay, so there are more than 20,000 species of ant, 3 lakh species of beetles, 28,000 species of fishes, and about 20,000 species of orchids. So here you can see that how enormous, how rich is our biodiversity. We have got huge species of plant, we have got huge species of animals, and even we have got the microbes also, which play an important role in our ecosystem in terms of nutrient cycling. Clear? So according to Edward Wilson, biodiversity is the variety of forms found at various levels of biological organization, right from the macromolecules found in the cells to the genes, gene pool to the species, ecosystem and the biomes. And the term biodiversity was coined by Rosen in the year 1985. Now we will just look into the global biodiversity of the species, okay, or we can say the magnitude of biodiversity. According to IUCN, International Union of Conservation of Natural and Natural Resources, in the year 2004, the total number of non-plant, okay, we are just considering the plant only, which include the algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperm and the angiosperm, and nearly animal species is slightly more than 10 to 14 million. Okay, so animal species is slightly more than 10 to 14 million, but out of 10 to 14 million, only 1.75 million has been documented and has been assigned the scientific name. Okay, because most of the species, they are yet to be discovered and they are yet to be described. Okay, that's why nowadays we are mainly discovering the new type of species, because most of the species are yet to be discovered and they are yet to be described. Alright, so of the known species, so among 1.75 million species which are known, nearly 10,25,000 species are of insects. Higher plants are 2,70,000 in number. Vertebrates 53,239. Among those, fishes are 26,959. Amphibians 4,780. Reptiles 7,150. Birds 9,700 and mammals 4,650. Okay, among the vertebrates. Algae 40,000 species has been identified. Fungi 72,000. Bacteria including cyanobacteria or the blue-green algae 4,000. Viruses 1,550. Crustaceans 42,000. Molluscans 70,000. Worms 25,000, protozoans 40,000 and others 1,10,000. So such a rich biodiversity we used to have. Okay, so nearly 1.75 million only has been identified, but out of 10 to 40 million species, most of them are yet to be discovered and they are yet to be described. Okay, now Robert Mayer has placed the number of global species diversity as around 7 million, and there are mainly two explanations for such. He said that the rate of discovery of new species and taxonomic groups have been studied more thoroughly in temperate areas. So due to these two reasons, he said that the global species diversity is around 7 million. Okay, Now we'll just look into the global biodiversity index of invertebrates, vertebrates and the plants. This is very, very important. All right, you have to know this. Actually, this pie chart we can say, where you have to see the accurate number of species that have been discovered. Okay, so this we have to go through it in details, where it shows the species number of invertebrates, vertebrates and the plants. So the major portions in case of invertebrates is occupied by the insects, then by the other animal groups, then we have got molluscan, and we have got the crustaceans. Among the vertebrates, it is the fishes that occupy the major positions, has the highest number. Then we have got amphibians, mammals, birds and reptiles. Then in case of plants, we have got fungi and angiosperms. Then we have got algae, then mosses, ferns, and we have got lichens also. So this way you have to remember the number of species of invertebrates, vertebrates and plants. So in the examinations, the diagram will be given and you have to fill it up. Clear? Okay, and go to table number 15.1 and 15.2, where you will see the number of identified species in the world and the number of species that has been identified in India. So kindly go to table number 15.1 also. Now next topic, we'll learn about the levels or component of biodiversity. Okay, so the term biodiversity was coined by Edward Wilson. Okay, and over here he said that biodiversity does not exist at the species level only, but it exists all the level of biological organizations, ranging from macromolecules within the cell to the biomes. So that's why we have got biodiversity at different levels. We have got genetic diversity, we have got species diversity, we have got ecological diversity, and we have got ecosystem diversity. So first we'll talk about genetic diversity, the diversity among the genes. Okay, so variations or the changes or the differences in the gene of a species will increase with the increase in the size and the environmental parameters of the habitat. So it says that in genetic diversity, the variation in the genes of a species will increase. How does it increase? When there will increase in the size and the environmental parameter of the habitat. Okay, so it says that a single species might show high diversity at the genetic level over its range of distribution. So a single species, they might show a huge diversity in terms of genetic composition. Clear? For example, we have got medicinal plant called the Rauwolfia, which is found in different Himalayan ranges. Okay, this particular plant will show a difference in potency and concentration of the chemical reserpine. So we said that this plant, which is called the Rauwolfia, which is shown in the which mainly present in different Himalayan regions, it will show the difference in the concentration and the potential of the chemical, that is reserpine, which is produced by it due to its genetic diversity. So it is found in different Himalayan regions, but this particular plant will show its genetic diversity in terms of its chemical compositions, because the concentration of these chemicals will be different. The name of the chemical is reserpine. Okay, and this genetic diversity play a key role or an important role in maintaining the diversity at the community level. Now let's go to species diversity. Species diversity means the total number of species present in an ecosystem. Okay, so when we consider the total number of species present in an ecosystem, then that is called species diversity or the species richness of an ecosystem. So the more the number of species in an ecosystem, the richer will be the ecosystem. One more saying that the more the number of species in an ecosystem, the richer will be the ecosystem. Okay, because each and every species in an ecosystem has got its own specific role, and the number of individuals in different species also varies. That is true. In case different species are equally represented in a community, listen very carefully, in case if different species are equally represented in a community, then there will be evenness or equitability in a community. So when the different species are equally represented in a community, then it will give the evenness of an ecosystem. And when we talk about these, then might be some species will occur more within the community than the other one. So that means the abundant species which occurs in a community will be the dominant species. It might be, when we consider the two species, out of the two, one can be abundant in that ecosystem, in that community, and that will become the dominant species. So differences in evenness increases the diversity. So when there will be differences in the evenness, when there will be no equitability of the species in a habitat or in a community, then there will be increase in the species richness, or there will be increase in the diversity. It means that, it's very important, listen very carefully, it means an ecosystem with individual from taxonomically unrelated species. That means in a community, in an ecosystem, if we have got species from different taxonomic group which are not related, which are unrelated, then there will be more diversity in that community or in that ecosystem. Clear? Number 2, an ecosystem with related species which belongs to the same taxonomic group. In that case, that ecosystem will be less diverse. There will be less diversity. And ecosystem with dominance species, okay, or let's say the species with more abundance, will become the least diverse one. So therefore, for this, for the ecosystem to be more rich, it must contain the species which are not related. It must belong to the different taxonomic group. Then only that ecosystem will be more diverse. Okay. Now next one, ecological diversity, which reflects the number of niches, trophic level in the ecosystem. Okay, where there will be flow of energy, where there will be the food web, where there will be cycling of nutrients. That is called ecological diversity, which will reflect the number of species, number of niches, because niches will occupy more than one number of species, and there will be the flow of energy, there will be the food web, and there will be recycling of nutrients, and this will represent our ecological diversity. And when we talk about ecological biodiversity, very carefully we have to know that we have got 3 types of ecological diversity: alpha diversity, beta diversity, and the delta diversity. So what does alpha diversity means? Alpha diversity represents the species diversity within the community. When we represent the species diversity within the community only, then that is called alpha diversity, which is also known as local diversity. Okay, and this alpha diversity is mainly seen in the organisms which share the same community and which occupy the same area of more or less uniform habitat. So alpha diversity occurs within the community. So when we represent the species diversity within the community, then that is called alpha diversity. It is also called local diversity, and in case of alpha diversity, the species will occupy the same community and more or less they will share the same particular habitat. And alpha biodiversity depends on the richness and evenness of the species. Now what is richness and what is evenness? Richness means the higher the number of species in a community, the diversity will be more rich. Okay, so richness is represented by the number of species per sample. Okay, so the more the number of species in a community, the richer is the community or the ecosystem. But when the species are related, when they belong to the same taxonomic group, and when they are present in the same particular habitat, then it will give us the evenness. So evenness is the measure of the relative abundance of different species making up the richness of an area. Okay, now let's go to the next one, which is called the beta diversity. Now beta diversity represents the diversity between the community. So here don't get confused. When we talk about the diversity within the community, that is called alpha diversity, and when we talk about the diversity between the community, that is called beta diversity. Okay, and beta diversity develops along the gradient such as altitude, latitude in different habitat. Okay, so depending upon the latitude and the altitude, we will get the beta diversity. Clear? Then third one is gamma diversity, which defines the regional diversity. It describes the total richness of a species in a similar habitat which is found within the geographical area, because it represents the regional diversity. Clear? Okay. Now the fourth one is ecosystem diversity, which includes niches. We are learning this one, which includes trophic level, which includes ecological process like the nutrient cycling, flow of energy, right, which will include the food web also, and it will indicate the role of dominant species, the keystone species in a particular habitat. And ecosystem diversity helps in producing more productive and stable ecosystem or community which can tolerate various stresses like prolonged drought. Okay, so we have got 4 types of, or the 4 components of biodiversity. What we have learned till now, we have learned that we have got genetic diversity, we have got species diversity, and we have got ecological diversity, and within that we have learned about alpha diversity, beta diversity, and the gamma diversity, and the last one is ecosystem diversity. Clear this one? Now we'll go to the next topic, which is called the pattern of biodiversity. So we have got two patterns of biodiversity: latitudinal biodiversity gradient and the altitudinal gradient. But in our syllabus, we have to go through the latitudinal gradient because biodiversity is not uniform throughout the world. Okay, so there are latitudinal and altitudinal gradient of species diversity, which is called the master gradient. Now, what does latitudinal gradient means? So it said that when we move from the equator to the pole, that is when we move from the low latitude to the high latitude, the biological diversity decreases. One more time, he said that when we move from the low latitude to the high altitude, that means when we are moving from the equator to the pole, the biological diversity will decrease. Why there will be a decrease in the biodiversity when we move from the low latitude to the high altitude? Because the tropical regions have favorable conditions for growth throughout the year, but the temperate regions, the arctic regions, have a severe climatic conditions, and they have the short period during which the growth of the plant takes place. That's why when we move from the low latitude to the high altitude, the biodiversity will keep on decreasing. Alright, now we'll go to the next one, which is called the altitudinal gradient. It says that when we move from the high altitude to the low latitude, there will be increase in biodiversity. In terms of latitudinal, when we are moving from the low latitude to the high latitude, there will decrease in biodiversity because the tropical regions was favoring the growth of the plants, because it has got favorable climatic conditions for the growth of the plant throughout the year. But when we consider the temperate regions and the arctic regions, they have got a short period for the growth of the plants. So that's why there was a decrease in biodiversity when we was moving from the low latitude to the high latitude. But when we move from the high altitude to the low altitude, there will be increase in terms of biodiversity, and that is called altitudinal gradient. Okay, now next one, let's talk about species area relationship. So we have got over here the German naturalist and geographer called Alexander von Humboldt. And when he was moving through the South American jungles, he observed that within any region, the species richness increases with the increase in area, but only up to a certain limit. He said that the species richness means the total number of species present in a particular community or in a habitat. So that species richness will increase with the increase in area, but only up to a certain limit. Okay, so he said that for a wide variety of organisms like vascular plants, birds, bat, and freshwater fishes, this species area relationship used to appear like a rectangular hyperbola. You can see over here, this is the rectangular hyperbola. Okay, and it can be written in a form, a straight line called log S equals to log C plus Z log A, where S means species richness, A means area, Z means slope of the area or the regression coefficient, and C means y-intercept. So remember this equation. Okay, this equation indicates the species area relationship. Now according to the ecologist, the value of this Z, okay, the value of Z, it lies between 0.1 to 0.2. Clear? Remember one more time that the value of Z lies within the range of 0.1 to 0.2 regardless of the region or the taxonomic group. Okay, whether it is plant in the Britain or the birds in the California or molluscan in the New York state. Okay, and when the species area relationship is considered for a very large area, so when we consider the species area relationship for a very large area, then therefore the value of this Z lies within the range of 0.6 to 1.2. So when we are considering the species area relationship in a huge area, in a large area, then the value of this Z ranges from 0.6 to 1.2. Okay, for frugivorous fruit-eating birds, for mammals in the tropical forest, the slope is found to be between 1.15. So remember the equation for species area relationship and the value or the range of the Z. Clear? Which is supposed to be between 0.1 to 0.2. But when we consider the species area relationship in a larger area, then this Z value lies between the range of 0.6 to 1.2, and the line becomes much stable. Clear? Okay. Now next one, we'll talk about the importance of species diversity in the ecosystem. First one, the biodiversity or the species diversity will bring the stability of the ecosystem. That's it should not show too much of variation in productivity from year to year. Okay, and it must be resistant to occasional disturbances and to invasion by the alien species. So biodiversity is very important for the stability of an ecosystem. If there will be loss of biodiversity, then the stability of the ecosystem will also be lost. Number 2 importance is productivity. Ecosystem with higher biodiversity will have higher productivity, okay, than that of the ecosystem with the low biodiversity. So when we have got higher biodiversity, so we have got more productivity. If we have got less biodiversity, then we have got less productivity. Then resilience, that means the nature has the ability to resist certain environmental conditions, okay, that can be tolerated by the nature. So any increase in the biodiversity provides resilience. That means the nature has the ability to resist, to tolerate certain unstable conditions which can be done by the human beings, which called the anthropogenic disturbances, or which can occur by terms of nature naturally, or it can also occur by the terms of alien species invasions. But nature do have got certain resilience. Okay, so if you have got biodiversity richer, then nature surely has got certain resilience property, so that they can resist or they can tolerate up to a certain limit of disturbances in the ecosystem. Alright, next one is ecosystem health. Biodiversity maintains the good health of the ecosystem through various checks and controls, and also negative and positive feedbacks. Okay, because in an ecosystem, all these species, they are interlinked with one another, okay, they are interacting with one another, and whenever one species will become extinct, then surely it will have an impact on the another species also. So here we have got one of the most important hypotheses called the Ribet-Popper hypothesis, proposed by Paul Ehrlich. Okay, he says that he mainly proposed the hypothesis to study the effect of decrease in biodiversity on the ecosystem. So according to hypothesis, he said that an aeroplane has thousands of rivets. So he considered rivets of an aeroplane with that of the species in our ecosystem. So removal of rivets by passenger may not affect the safety of flight initially. So at the beginning, when the passenger of the flight starts removing the rivets, then at the beginning initially there will be no such effect, there will be no such danger regarding the safety of the flight. But when more and more rivets are removed, the planes becomes dangerously weak, right? And when we remove the rivets from the most critical part of the plane, let's say from the part of the wing, then it will create a serious threat to the functioning of the flight. Clear? Similarly, in an ecosystem, the various species, they also act as rivets. Okay, at the beginning, removal of one or more species doesn't have an impact on the ecosystem. But when we used to remove the most important species from the ecosystem, then that will surely impact the balance of our ecosystem, will surely impact, will surely disturb, will surely destabilize the balance of our biodiversity of our ecosystem. So this is called the Ribet-Popper hypothesis, and each and every species has got a key role, has got an important role in our ecosystem. Yeah. Now let's talk about the causes of biodiversity loss. What are the different reasons for the loss of biodiversity? So we have got 4 main causes for the loss of biodiversity. We have got habitat destructions, we have got habitat fragmentations, overexploitations, alien species invasions, and the coextension. So first we'll talk about habitat destruction and fragmentations. Okay, because habitat destructions and fragmentation is one of the major cause of the loss of biodiversity. With the rise of the human populations, more and more forests are undergoing deforestation, right? And due to deforestations, we are also causing the extinction of many species of flora and fauna. Okay, so human activities like cutting down the tree, that deforestations, burning forests, plugging grasslands, filling wetlands are one of the major causes for the habitat destructions and the fragmentations, which is resulting into the loss of wild animals, not only the wild animals but also the plants. Okay, so we are mainly disrupting the biodiversity. We are the one who are responsible for the loss of biodiversity. Clear? And diversion of a forest land into cropland, orchards, exotic plantations, or creation of building, roads, airfields through the forest area is called fragmentations. And whenever fragmentations will be there, the habitats will be fragmented, and in that case, due to fragmentation, these species will not be able to move from one place to another place in a fragmented habitat. Number 2 is over exploitations or the improper use of natural resources or the resource management, because we are the one who are using the natural resources, all right, and we are using it to such an extent that the day will come when those resources can usually become exploited, they can usually be decreased from our ecosystems, and it will not be available for the coming future generations. So we are mercilessly hunting the animals, okay, we are disturbing the food chains, we are disturbing the food web. Why? For our own benefit. We are over exploiting the wild animals, the wild plants, and this will lead to the extinction of many species of plant and the animals. Alright, so during the last 500 years, extinction of many species has taken place. Extinction of Steller sea cow, the passenger pigeon, is mainly due to the over exploitation by the human beings, and many marine fishes are also facing extinction around the world due to over harvesting. So over exploitation of natural resources are also causing the loss of biodiversity, and here the human beings are the one who are the main culprit regarding the loss of biodiversity. The third one is the alien species invasion. Now what does alien species means? If any species is introduced into a geographical area or a locality or in our habitat from other ecosystem, accidentally or deliberately, then that is called alien species invasion or exotic species. That means those species are not present in our habitat, but when those species are brought from other habitat to our place, to our own habitat, then they are called alien species or exotic species. And exotic species competes with the naturally occurring biotic community of the ecosystem, and they can often cause gradual suppression and extermination of the original inhabitants. So whenever the alien species are introduced in our habitat, then there will be competitions, okay, they will compete with the naturally occurring species of our own habitat, and in that case the original inhabitants of our habitats can usually become suppressed and can become extinct, and that we will learn by the help of few examples. For example, Nile perch is an exotic predatory fish. It was introduced into Lake Victoria and has threatened the entire ecosystem of the lake and eliminated 200 native species of cichlid fishes. So here Nile perch is the exotic predatory fish which are introduced into Lake Victoria, okay, and when this fish was introduced into this lake, it removed nearly around 200 native species of cichlid fishes. The cichlid fishes are the original inhabitants of the Lake Victoria, but when we introduce the Nile perch in that lake, it has resulted to the elimination of those cichlid fishes. Number 2 is Lantana canara, the most common weed of the world. It was introduced in India as an ornamental hedge plant from Sri Lanka. It forms dense hedge and thickens quickly on cutting, trampling or burning, but this has covered land meant for pasture, cultivated fields, wastelands and the forest. So here Lantana canara is creating a problem. Parthenium, which entered India by chance, has replaced several herbs and shrubs from the plains. Water hyacinth, Echinoria, okay, then alligator weed, Alternanthera and Salvinia molesta was also introduced in India, and they become a nuisance. So these are also the exotic species. Echinoria was first introduced in water body in Bengal because it has got evergreen leaves and they give pink flower. But the thing is that this water hyacinth Echinoria will spread on the surface of the water body very rapidly, and when they used to multiply rapidly within the water body, they will deplete the oxygen content in the water, and when there will be demand for more oxygen, okay, because the oxygen has been depleted from the water body, so there is demand for oxygen, which is called biological oxygen demand. In that case, in the lack of oxygen in the water, the fish will start dying in large number. That's why this water hyacinth is also called the terror of Bengal. So alien species invasion is also one of the factors for the loss of biodiversity. The next one, we'll go into the fourth one, is called the coextensions. This is a phenomenon when extinction of one species will also cause the extinction of another species of plants or that of animals, okay, where they have got mutual sort of associations where both of them are mutually dependent. So if one of these species will be extinct, then surely it will impact the extinction of another species also. For example, I can give you that most of the plants are dependent on honeybee for pollination, okay, they can only be pollinated by the honeybee. If honeybee will become extinct, then those plants, those flowers which are dependent on honeybee for pollination will also become extinct. So this is called co-extinction. So extinction of either of the two can cause extinction of the other. So these are the few factors or the causes for the loss of biodiversity. Okay, so this was for today's class. In the next class we will begin with the extinction and we will begin with the conservation of biodiversity. So see you in next class. Thank you.